Welcome to my channel, The Good Book Tales. In today's video, we begin a journey into a forgotten crossroads of history, faith, and destiny, a story where empires rise, chains fall, and a pagan king becomes an instrument in the hands of the God of Israel. Picture this: Jerusalem lies in ruins. Its walls are broken, its temple burned, and its people scattered far from home. The Israelites sit in exile, prisoners in a foreign land, wondering if God has abandoned them forever. Generations have passed. Hope is fading. And then, from the east, a new power begins to move, silent at first, unstoppable soon after. This power is Persia. And at its center stands one of the most surprising figures in the entire Bible, King Cyrus. Cyrus the Great was not born into the covenant of Abraham. He did not grow up reading the law of Moses. He worshipped different gods and ruled over vast lands with military strength and political brilliance. Yet somehow, his name appears in the Bible, not once, but repeatedly, spoken with authority, purpose, and prophecy. Long before Cyrus was born, the prophet Isaiah wrote his name and described his mission. A foreign king, chosen to reshape history and restore God's people. How could that be? As the Persian Empire rises, Babylon, the empire that crushed Jerusalem, begins to tremble. Massive walls, guarded gates, and untold wealth give Babylon confidence. No city seems more secure. No kingdom appears more permanent. But history has a way of humbling even the greatest powers. And behind the scenes, something greater than politics is unfolding. The Bible presents Persia not just as an empire, but as part of a divine plan moving steadily toward fulfillment. King Cyrus enters the stage at a moment when prophecy and power collide. He is a conqueror, yet also a liberator. A ruler of nations, yet called the Lord's anointed, a title usually reserved for Israel's kings. This alone should stop us in our tracks. Why would the Bible describe a Persian king in such sacred terms? What did Cyrus do that earned him such a place in biblical history? As we explore Persia in the Bible, we begin to see a story layered with mystery and meaning. The fall of Babylon. The decree that shocks the ancient world. The unexpected freedom granted to Jewish exiles. And a rebuilding that seemed impossible only years before. Every step raises new questions. Was Cyrus acting by political wisdom alone, or was he responding to a higher call he barely understood? But here's where the tension deepens. Power always comes with a price. Empires rise fast, but they do not last forever. Persia's moment of divine favor does not mean immunity from decline. As Cyrus changes the fate of God's people, forces are already at work that will test Persia's future, spiritually, politically, and morally. In this story, faith meets empire, prophecy meets policy, and one man's decision alters the course of biblical history. And as we move forward, we'll uncover how Persia's role in the Bible didn't end with Cyrus, and why his choices still echo today. Because the real question isn't just who King Cyrus was. It's why God chose him. And what happened after the decree that changed everything. And that's where the story truly begins. Long before Cyrus ever marched toward Babylon, the stage had already been set by loss, silence, and unanswered prayers. The Jewish exile was not just a political event, it was a spiritual wound. Families were torn from their land, songs of Zion were replaced with the sounds of foreign streets, and memories of the temple became stories told by elders who feared the next generation would forget. Babylon was not only a place of captivity, it was a reminder of failure, judgment, and distance from God. Yet even in exile, whispers of prophecy remained alive, carefully preserved and quietly repeated. Meanwhile, far to the east, Persia was growing stronger. Unlike other empires built on fear alone, the Persian Empire moved with strategy, patience, and vision. Cyrus learned early how power worked, but he also understood loyalty, culture, and timing. As smaller kingdoms fell under Persian control, Cyrus earned a reputation not just as a conqueror, but as a ruler who allowed people to keep their customs and beliefs. This made him different, and that difference would later matter more than anyone could imagine. Babylon, however, believed itself untouchable. Its walls were legendary, its gates massive, its wealth unmatched. Inside the city, rulers trusted in their strength and mocked the idea that any force could bring them down. But history shows us that confidence often blinds leaders to warning signs. The Bible hints that Babylon's fall would come suddenly, not by chance, but by design. And somewhere between prophecy and preparation, Persia was moving closer. What makes this moment so mysterious is that Cyrus himself may not have fully understood his role. The Bible records that God called him by name, saying he would go before him, level mountains, and open gates. These words were written decades before Cyrus was born. Think about that. A foreign king, unaware of Israel's God, walking into a destiny already written. Was Cyrus simply following ambition, or was something guiding his path beyond human plans? As Persia's shadow stretched toward Babylon, tension filled the air. The Jewish exiles watched empires clash from the sidelines, unsure whether this new power meant freedom or just another change of masters. Hope is dangerous when you've been disappointed before. And yet, something felt different this time. Because if Babylon were to fall, everything would change. The balance of power. The future of the exiles. The meaning of prophecy itself. And Cyrus stood right at the center of it all, unknowingly holding the key to a moment that would redefine Persia in the Bible and reshape the story of God's people. But the gates of Babylon still stood. And the decree that would shake the ancient world had not yet been spoken. As Cyrus prepared to expand his empire, the world around him was shifting in ways he could not fully see. The Babylonian rulers, confident in their walls and armies, underestimated the quiet strength of Persia and the cunning of its king. Inside the city, officials whispered about threats beyond the horizon, yet no one dared challenge the illusion of invincibility. The tension between what Babylon believed and what was coming created a fragile, almost invisible thread, ready to snap at any moment. Meanwhile, among the Jewish exiles, life continued under the shadow of uncertainty. Families debated whether this new ruler, Cyrus, could ever be trusted. Could a foreign king really act as a savior, or would he be just another conqueror, indifferent to their suffering? Some held on to hope, remembering the prophecies of Isaiah and Jeremiah, while others clung to fear, unsure if hope itself was dangerous. Their story was not just about survival, it was about faith tested in the harshest conditions, about dreams deferred, and prayers whispered in silence. Beyond the borders of Persia and Babylon, smaller kingdoms and cities watched with nervous curiosity. Alliances were forming, spies were moving, and every decision carried weight. Cyrus's reputation as a leader who respected the customs and beliefs of those he conquered added a layer of complexity. Could his approach truly bring peace, or would it provoke jealousy, rebellion, and unseen resistance within his own ranks? And at the heart of it all, a larger question lingered, one that made even the bravest advisors pause. If Cyrus's rise was part of a divine plan, what did that mean for the empires, kings, and people caught in the unfolding story? The lines between ambition, prophecy, and destiny were blurring, and the consequences of each choice were still hidden in the fog of uncertainty. The stage was set. Empires teetered. Lives hung in the balance. And the decree that would change everything had not yet been revealed. The tension was reaching a breaking point. Cyrus stood at the edge of history, his army poised on the horizon, while Babylon slept behind its massive walls, unaware of the storm that was approaching. Rumors of his conquests had already spread, yet no one could fully grasp the force that was coming. In the streets of Babylon, people went about their lives, confident in the city's invincibility, but in secret chambers, advisors whispered fears that the king dared not voice. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the very city itself sensed that its fate was about to be rewritten. For the Jewish exiles, every passing day was a mixture of hope and fear. Families gathered quietly, listening for news from afar, clinging to the possibility that Cyrus could be the one to fulfill the prophecies long spoken in hushed tones. Mothers told stories of the temple and the land of their ancestors, trying to preserve faith even as doubt crept into the hearts of the young. Some believed that God's hand was at work through a foreign king, while others struggled to see how a conqueror could truly bring restoration. The uncertainty was unbearable, yet the possibility of change was intoxicating. Even within Persia, the tension was palpable. Soldiers, advisors, and spies knew that the coming confrontation could decide the fate of empires. Every strategy meeting, every march, every whispered word carried weight. Cyrus himself must have felt the gravity of what lay ahead, though how much he understood of the divine purpose behind it remained a mystery. The moment of reckoning was almost upon them. Babylon's walls loomed, silent and imposing, while Persia's forces advanced with quiet precision. Prophecy, ambition, faith, and fear all converged in a single point, waiting for a spark to ignite the chain of events that would reshape nations. And as the sun set on the horizon, casting long shadows over both the conquerors and the conquered, one question hung in the air: when the first blows fell, would destiny bend to man's will, or to something far greater? The world held its breath. The story was about to reach its tipping point. Just as the horizon glowed with the promise of Persia's advance, a new twist began to ripple through the fragile balance of power. Within Babylon, a hidden council of nobles and priests debated a secret plan. They had grown uneasy with the city's outward confidence, sensing that their walls, however formidable, might not withstand the cunning of Cyrus. Whispers spread of treachery, of gates that could be opened from within, and of soldiers who might not be as loyal as the king believed. Fear began to creep into the hearts of men who had never known it before. The city that seemed impregnable now seemed fragile, like glass trembling under the faintest touch. Meanwhile, the Jewish exiles were faced with their own impossible choices. Messages from sympathetic Babylonian officials hinted that some doors could be opened to allow them to return home, but at a cost they could not yet understand. Families wrestled with doubt and hope. Could this really be the moment they had prayed for, or was it another trap disguised as deliverance? Every conversation was charged with tension, every decision a test of faith. The possibility that their dreams of rebuilding the temple might finally come true made their hearts race, but it also made them vulnerable to despair if the plan failed. Even Cyrus himself was confronted with unexpected complications. Intelligence reached him that not all of Babylon would welcome him, that spies and hidden forces worked to undermine his campaign. His usual strategies of diplomacy and calculated force were suddenly insufficient. The Persian king, already a figure of prophecy in the Bible, now faced the very human uncertainty of whether his ambition and faith could overcome the invisible enemies that lurked in the shadows. And the greater mystery loomed larger than ever. Could a single man, even one called the Lord's anointed, navigate the intertwining paths of divine purpose and human ambition? Could empires built on pride and walls survive when destiny itself seemed to move against them? Each day brought new tension, new choices, and new dangers, as prophecy, politics, and the will of men collided. As night fell over Babylon, torches flickered along the walls, casting shadows that seemed almost alive. Somewhere within those shadows, plans were being set in motion that could change everything. And for the Jewish exiles, for Cyrus, and for Babylon itself, the moment of truth was drawing closer. Every heartbeat, every whispered prayer, and every silent decision mattered now more than ever. The stage was set for an outcome that none could predict, and the world waited with bated breath, on the edge of a turning point that could reshape history forever. The walls still stood, but the game had changed. The tension had doubled, and the story was far from over. As dawn broke over the walls of Babylon, the tension that had gripped empires and exiles alike reached its peak. Cyrus, the king whose name had been written in prophecy long before he was born, moved with both precision and purpose. The Persian army, disciplined and resolute, approached the city that had mocked them from a distance for so long. Yet this was no ordinary battle. Every step carried the weight of destiny, every decision a test of faith and strategy. The city's walls, so long thought invincible, seemed almost to sense the inevitability of what was coming. Inside Babylon, panic had begun to take hold. The hidden treachery whispered among the nobles and priests had revealed itself, gates secretly opened, watchmen bribed, and defenses compromised. Babylon's confidence crumbled, and the king of Babylon realized too late that no amount of wealth or pride could protect him from forces moving far beyond his control. In a single, decisive moment, the Persian army entered the city, not through brute force, but through the very doors that fear and greed had left ajar. For the Jewish exiles, the moment was nothing short of miraculous. Cyrus issued the decree that would forever change their destiny. The people of Israel were free to return to their land, to rebuild the temple, and to restore what had been lost. Joy, relief, and disbelief swept through families who had longed for this day for decades. What had seemed impossible became reality, as prophecy and human action collided in a way that reshaped history. Yet even in victory, the story held a twist that no one anticipated. As the exiles prepared to leave Babylon, Cyrus discovered a hidden faction within his own court plotting against him, jealous of his success and fearful of the power he now wielded. The very forces that had helped bring Babylon down now threatened the stability of Persia itself. The king, hailed as the Lord's anointed in Scripture, realized that while one destiny had been fulfilled, another challenge had already begun. The empire's future was uncertain, and the delicate balance between divine purpose and human ambition was far from settled. As the exiles journeyed home, hearts full of hope and eyes fixed on the temple yet to be rebuilt, one truth became clear: history is rarely simple, and even the most extraordinary victories carry shadows that linger. The fall of Babylon marked a triumph foretold by prophets, yet it also set the stage for challenges even greater than those faced before. Cyrus had changed the course of nations, but the story of Persia in the Bible, and the legacy of God's plans through human hands, was far from over. And in the distance, beyond the borders of Persia, new forces were already stirring, ready to test the limits of power, faith, and destiny once again. With Babylon fallen and the Jewish exiles finally free to return home, the world seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. Families packed their belongings, hearts brimming with hope, carrying not just possessions but centuries of longing and faith. The streets that had once echoed with despair now held quiet anticipation for a future that had once felt impossible. Every step toward Jerusalem was a step toward restoration, a living testament to prophecy fulfilled and prayers answered. Cyrus, for his part, returned to Persia with a new understanding of his own place in history. He had been more than a conqueror, he had become a vessel of a greater plan. Though challenges remained within his own empire, the moment of triumph in Babylon had demonstrated that leadership and vision, guided by principles of justice and wisdom, could change the course of nations. His legacy, recorded in both history and the Bible, would be remembered not only for military victories but for his role in shaping destiny in alignment with divine purpose. For the Jewish exiles, the journey home was transformative in more ways than one. Beyond the physical return to Jerusalem, there was a spiritual restoration underway. Families rebuilt homes, temples, and communities, reviving traditions that had nearly been lost. The story of exile, hardship, and eventual deliverance became a source of hope for future generations, a reminder that even in the darkest times, perseverance, faith, and patience could yield extraordinary outcomes. Even the shadowy plots and treacheries that had threatened both Babylon and Persia faded into history, serving as reminders of the fragile balance between ambition, power, and destiny. Lessons were learned, alliances strengthened, and the understanding grew that history is shaped not only by kings and empires but by the choices, faith, and courage of ordinary people caught in extraordinary circumstances. Looking back, the story of Persia in the Bible is more than a tale of conquest or prophecy. It is a story about the unexpected ways God's plans unfold through human lives. It shows that even those outside the covenant, like King Cyrus, can become instruments of divine purpose, and that hope can survive exile, despair, and centuries of waiting. As the sun set over the rebuilt walls of Jerusalem and the Persian Empire continued to grow under Cyrus's careful rule, the world moved forward, forever changed. The exiles had returned, the temple would rise again, and the story of faith, courage, and destiny had reached a satisfying conclusion, one that would echo through history, scripture, and human hearts for generations to come. And in the quiet moments, when the dust of battle settled and the gates of cities stood firm once more, one truth remained clear: destiny often arrives through the most unlikely hands, and even the greatest empires exist within the greater story of faith, purpose, and divine timing.